Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. If everyone would please take a seat, we'd greatly appreciate it. We'll get started. Thank you for being here for our Town of Oyster Bay Town Board meeting of Tuesday, November 14th, 2017. This morning's prayer will be led by Reverend Dr. Jeffrey Prey of Oyster Bay's First Presbyterian Church. The First Presbyterian Church's ministry began in Oyster Bay right here in 1842, with the first church being located on East Main Street at the location that is now Knobman's Hardware. The church's mission is to grow as a family of believers and seekers where all are invited to celebrate God's grace. The congregation is also noted for its association with Theodore Roosevelt Sr., his wife Martha Bullock Roosevelt, and their children, including their son, Theodore Roosevelt Jr., the future President of the United States. We are very pleased to welcome Dr. Prey here this morning to lead us in prayer. Dr. Prey, if you would, please rise.
Let me just say thank you for the invitation. My actual prayer is short. I'm just appreciative of the initiative of starting these meetings with prayer. I read in the New York Times recently a comment about the vacuity of Vice President Pence's response to the shootings in Texas. It appears that now even prayer can divide us, but hopefully not here. We come from different traditions. Based on the modest size of my congregation, I suspect few of you are from my tradition. But I appreciate you welcoming me here in this tradition and trust that our different traditions will make us stronger as opposed to weaker. Let us pray. Almighty God, you have plans for us and the power to make them happen. We ask this day that you give those gathered here, supervisors and councilmen and women, government workers of all stripes, a knowledge of your will for the world. Give also to the residents of this community a knowledge of your will for our town. Let us all remember that we serve a public trust beyond personal gain or glory. May we see that no community lives for itself alone, but is responsible to you for peace. Help us to remember that we serve best when we serve you. In the name of our Lord, amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. Please remain standing while we are led in the Pledge of Allegiance by an extraordinary veteran and resident of the town of Oyster Bay. Elijah McKellen served in the United States Navy from 1944 to 1946, and we are tremendously honored with your presence.
Everybody join me. Veterans can salute. We pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you again to Elijah McKellen. Thank you. Since our last meeting on October 24th, much has occurred, and I'd like to take a few minutes to update our residents. First, I'm proud to report that the Empire Center, an independent nonprofit think tank based in Albany, recently awarded Oyster Bay Town with a grade A for online transparency and accessibility. Under an audit conducted 2 weeks ago, the town nearly tripled the points earned when compared with the audit the town received in 2014. At that time, it had resulted in a grade of F, and now, once again, as I just mentioned, we have a grade of A. The most notable gains were made in categories such as public information, financial reports, revenue sources, and ease of navigation of our website. This ranking from the Empire Center further solidifies this administration's reputation as a leader in online transparency and accessibility. It also clearly reinforces the recognition placed on the town by Reclaim New York, who declared the town the standard bearer throughout New York State for online transparency. We will continue at the direction of this board continue to look to move the bar even higher and get even better grades in the future as we continue to make transparency and ethics reform among our highest priorities. Ladies and gentlemen, transparency is what we seek to bring to all aspects of our government. For instance, last week, we hosted a public workshop to obtain resident and community input into the use of a $10 million downtown revitalization grant we won from the state for the redevelopment in Hicksville. The public workshop was the first in a series of 3 planned meetings. It's an important step toward identifying projects and initiatives which the community feels are appropriate for downtown Hicksville. And as we've said from the beginning, listening to the community's wants and putting them into action is why we're here. The town was thrilled to be the recipient of this $10 million award from Governor Cuomo and the Long Island Regional Economic Development Council. We will make our residents proud when establishing and approving a new and vital community-based vision for our community, especially in Hicksville, and then we know that will be the template for the rest of Long Island and the rest of the state of New York. You know, growing our economy for redeveloping our downtowns is important. It's just as important to preserve our suburban quality of life. For that reason, Councilman Imbrodo, Councilman Hand, and our town clerk, James Altadonna, joined me in launching a new quality of life task force. This code enforcement initiative will focus on the quality of life concerns such as illegal housing, zombie homes, noise, landscaping, parking, among other issues. Our town has consistently recognized as one of the best places to live in the nation, and we've been recognized by numerous publications, including national publications. And we've seen a steady increase in the value of homes, properties, and businesses. This task force will help protect our greatest asset, our quality of life, while also protecting and preserving the safety and general well-being of our residents. Residents who would like to report an issue of concern to the Quality of Life Task Force are urged to call Code Enforcement at 516-624-6200. Again, that number is area code 516-624-6200. In preserving our quality of life, we must also be mindful of our residents' wallets. For that reason, the 2018 adopted budget cuts taxes. We're very proud of our budget. This will help us continue reducing government expenses, and we will today be considering a retirement and separation of service initiatives for town employees with the motivation of reducing the town's workforce and reducing the cost to our residents. At our last meeting, the town board adopted that budget, and that budget cuts taxes $1.3 million and significantly reduces our town's debt. At the time, my administration was exploring a new shared service initiative to save taxpayers money through the merger of the town and county departments of public safety. While the town of Oyster Bay would achieve immediate savings through such an initiative, we have since learned that the county, after analyzing all of the data, has told us that they would not realize the overtime savings they had hoped for. And for this reason, the county will not sign on to the merger agreement. I would like to thank Nassau County and the police department for exploring this opportunity. As I had explained previously, the 2018 adopted budget included a contingency fund for that department. As such, we will move forward today with executing that contingency fund. That said, myself and this entire town board will continue to seek savings in every corner of government. I will continue to advocate for shared services initiatives and not back down from analyzing all options, even when special interests exist. The Department of Public Safety, for instance, has 40 employees, and that is down from a high of 65 employees. That department, just like every other town department, will be asked to achieve savings through efficiencies and attrition while maintaining the services and safety that they provide to our residents. I'd like to thank the brave men and women of the Department of Public Safety for their patience throughout this process. I'd also want to point out that through the exploration of shared services that was initiated by the governor and the state legislature as part of the state budget, we, the town of Oyster Bay, were the leaders in dollars saved through this program. The leaders in all of Long Island. So we saved more than any other municipality our size, and we're very, very proud of partnering on so many initiatives with the villages, with other municipalities to do what the program was intended to do, to consolidate these services and find savings for our residents. Even without the public safety issue, we still came out number one of any municipality our size, and we're very, very proud of that. Before I conclude, I want to remind residents that Councilwoman Alessia and Councilman McEnone recently kicked off our Toys for Tots holiday collection drive, and we thank you very, very much for this important initiative. Residents can donate a new unwrapped toy for a girl or boy including for teens, at our town facilities, including Town Hall North and Town Hall South. For more information, please call 624-6619 or 624-6364. And again, a big thanks to Councilwoman Alessia, Councilman McEnone, and to the entire town board for their leadership. I know this will be a very successful project, and that will help underprivileged young people, children, and teens throughout our town and throughout our communities here on Long Island, with a very important process to make their holidays brighter. And now will the town clerk, James Altadonna, please call the regular, first actually, we'll have to take attendance.
Supervisor Saladino?
Present?
Councilman Muscarella is absent. Councilman McEnone is absent. Councilwoman Alessia?
I am here.
Okay. Councilwoman Johnson?
Here.
Councilman Imbrodo?
Present.
And Councilman Hand?
Here.
Just to make clear, do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
Good, thank you very much. And will the town clerk, Altadonna, please call our regular action calendar?
Okay. Supervisor, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the remove from the table first,
Yes?
which is the Angle Street property.
Okay.
May I have a motion to remove resolution number 659, which was tabled on 10/17/2017? On the motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Councilwoman Alessia and seconded by Councilwoman Johnson. Okay, on the vote. Supervisor Saladino?
Aye?
Councilman Muscarella is absent. Councilman McEnone is absent. Councilwoman Alessia?
Aye.
Councilwoman Johnson?
Aye.
Councilman Imbrodo?
Aye.
And Councilman Hand.
Aye.
Motion to remove from the table, Resolution 659 passes with 5 ayes. Now we have a walk-on and a resuspend, so we're going to do the walk-on next. May I have a motion to suspend the rules and add the following walk-on resolution number 765-2017, which is a resolution relating to retirement incentive. On the motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Councilwoman Alessia, second by Councilwoman Johnson. On the vote, Supervisor Saladino?
Aye?
Councilman Muscarella is absent. Councilman McEnone is absent. Councilwoman Alessia?
Aye.
Councilwoman Johnson?
Aye.
Councilman Imbrodo?
Aye.
And Councilman Hand.
Aye.
Motion to suspend the rules and proceed with the added walk-on resolution 765 passes with 5 ayes. Now we're going to resuspend the rules and add one more, and then we can go to the regular action calendar. May I have a motion to resuspend the rules and add the following walk-on resolution TF 17-17, which is a resolution relating to the transfer of funds for public safety. On the motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Councilwoman Alessia, second by Councilwoman Johnson. On the vote, Supervisor Saladino,
Aye.
Councilman Muscarella is absent, Councilman McEnone is absent, Councilwoman Alessia.
No, so this is as to the walked-on, both walked-ons and the suspend?
No, this is just for the resuspends for public safety.
Hold on.
Okay. Councilwoman Johnson,
Aye.
Councilman Imbrodo,
Aye.
Councilman Hand. Aye. Okay, that motion carries with 5 ayes. Now I'm going to call the regular action calendar, and nothing was voted on, it was just all put on the regular action calendar. May I have a motion to adopt Resolution TF 16-17 through Resolution 765? On the motion.
Second.
Motion was made by Councilwoman Alessia, seconded by Councilwoman Johnson. You have multiple speakers, or maybe just one, I think. Just one. Mr. Fryer.
Okay. Our speaker will be Bob Fryer of Woodbury. Good morning, Bob. How are you?
Hi, good morning. Thank you. Bob Fryer, 33 Chestnut Lane, Woodbury, New York. Just a couple of questions. So, as I understood, 659 is off the table, right?
Right.
Okay, because when he called it, he mentioned that name, that number, so. Okay.
No, 659 was removed from the table and put back on.
Oh, it was put back on?
Yeah.
So you are voting on that today?
We are voting on it, yes.
Okay. Okay, so since I am asking about that, then since that is, I guess, being authorized for publication for RFPs, what was the actual appraised value that came back on that property, which you authorized quite a while ago, or I shouldn't say quite a while, about a month or so ago. Okay, so Resolution 736, that is amending a contract that was originally $10 million, and that was, originally $2 million, and that's now $10 million. That's quite a mistake. How did something like that happen? And, who actually made that mistake? Because that's pretty huge. Also, on Resolution 737, looks like you're approving additional outside counsel fees that were incurred back in November of 2016. So I'm wondering why that wasn't disclosed quite a while ago. That's a year. These are fees that were incurred a year ago. Also, just curious, what is the storage space on Jericho Turnpike in Woodbury? That's just for curiosity purposes. And I know on Resolution 748, that was originally tabled back in November, and now it's back on the table with different names other than Tom Sibilico. What is that? What exactly does that Labor Review Board do, and is there additional compensation for being on that Labor Board? And then really a couple of clarification between 759 and 765. One is called a voluntary separation incentive program. The other one is called a retirement, 659, a retirement, it was 765, a retirement incentive. So is there a difference between that? I'd appreciate if you could explain to me. And then also just 764, this is, if I recall, that was from the gas station on the empty property in Nassau Shores in Massapequa. I remember you had the hearing about that, and quite a number of residents were concerned about that. So I'm just curious, I'm assuming you're approving it at this, on this agenda, so I'm just curious what stipulations were added for that. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's start off with the gas station. Commissioner Macaron, would you please step forward? Very proud to work with our residents on this issue. We had an outpouring of suggestions, we had multiple meetings, and we, quite frankly, listened to the public, and I'm very happy with this outcome on this application.
Yes. So this application, the hearing was held in August, and based upon some of the comments that came out of that meeting, along with other conversations that we had with residents, certain things were changed on the property. One of the things, we are striping the road to prevent people from queuing up when people are turning off of Merrick Road. We are also relocating the air pumps as per some of the comments that came out that day, and we're adding doghouse dormers to the roof. So based upon, conversations and discussions with the applicant, they will be submitting those revised plans to Planning and Development.
So in short, we have motivated the developer to build a structure more in line with the homes in the community, less commercial looking,
Yes.
more of that New England quaint look, stone on the facade, clapboard look,
Right,
doghouse
absolutely.
dormers.
And the big thing is the hours of operation.
Yes,
They have
that's
agreed
my
to
next question.
the 6 to 11 p.m.
So they will open at 6 a.m. and they will close at 11 p.m.
That's correct.
And
Commissioner, is it 5 or 6?
I believe it's 6 p.m., correct? 6 p.m.
6 a.m.
6 a.m., correct.
And this is in line, for those who weren't here during those meetings, this is in line with what the residents had asked for.
Yes, correct.
Good, good. We had also made the suggestion at that time that they have empty containers that are certified to hold fuel. This is the closest gas station to the launching ramps at Burns Park, as well as the docking if someone is about to run out of gas, whether it be for a car or for a
Right.
marine vessel.
Correct.
They could walk to this gas station, buy a container, a certified container,
And
fill
fill
it up, and be on their way, and save them in the event that they have that emergency.
Yes.
So can we remind the developer that that's something that the residents could greatly benefit by?
Absolutely. We will do that.
Great.
Okay,
Thank you
thank you.
very, very much. To talk about these very proactive incentives, we would like, who do we have on that? Tom Sabelico or Vicky? Come talk to us about that. Vicky, why don't you come up and talk to us about the incentives? Now, basically, the incentives are designed to save the taxpayer money, to reduce the town workforce. We recognize that there are people who would like to retire if they have the incentive, and that we can continue to make the town more efficient. Is that correct? Hasn't that been the motivation all along?
Absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely. Good morning, Town
Good
Board
morning.
Supervisor.
Just give us your name for the
Vicky
record,
Spinelli,
please.
Deputy Commissioner of Human Resources. The two incentives that they're going to be posting for the hearings will be held at the next meeting on the 28th of November. But in short, the retirement incentive is one that we've had for the last few years. We're just going to run it one last time, as far as I know, which will be for the same thing. Anybody who is first becoming eligible, I think it is between August 1st and December 31st, the first time eligible to be retiring will get $1,000 for every year of service in the retirement system, plus their insurances, their health insurance for their lifetime. The employees who are already eligible and have not retired previously would get $500 for every year of service, plus the insurances. The voluntary separation incentive is something new. It's something that Nassau County has done, and it's just for anybody who feels that they want to leave the town. We'll give them $1,000 for every year that they have worked for us, and that is all.
To clarify that for the public, so the incentive that we're offering, the second incentive, is exactly the same language that Nassau County utilizes?
I'm not sure exactly, I didn't write it, but I think it's pretty much the
Virtually
premise,
the
yes.
same language.
yes.
And that was, for their purposes, that was voted on and passed by the entire Nassau legislature.
Yes, and I believe it's already done. I think it was a previous
Yes.
initiative they had.
So just to clarify this, for employees who could have taken advantage of this in previous years because they had qualified, they would have at that time received $1,000 for every year of service. But because they didn't, they now would only receive $500 for every year of service,
On the retirement incentive, yes.
retirement incentive. And on the other?
On the other is just $1,000 for every year they've worked for the town of Oyster Bay, and that's the only incentive that they would get, other than their regular payouts through the union contract.
And can we make sure that we make workshops available through your office for employees so that they can get their questions answered, so they can learn every detail of the project, and quite frankly, to motivate more employees to take advantage of these?
Absolutely.
Okay. And the big question of all, by instituting these initiatives, will the town save money?
Absolutely.
Tell us how.
You have an employee who makes, say, $60,000 a year. They have maybe 9 years of service in. They decide they're relatively young, they don't want to stay in the system anymore. So we give them $9,000 instead of paying them $65,000 for the year.
Okay. Does anyone have any other
The
questions?
incentive is for them to leave where they wouldn't necessarily have left.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Yes.
Is there like a maximum number of people, or is there a certain goal? Like, let's say a lot more people decide to take the separation agreement.
Yes.
Than you anticipated, and is there a point where you would have to cut it off?
No, there is no maximum. We're making this available to all employees, and we're going to be counseling the employees so they can learn more, get their questions answered, see if it works for them. And the idea is to have as many employees as would like to take advantage of this, to make it available to them and to explain the process so they're very, very comfortable with their decision. Yes?
Maybe I misunderstood. You're also paying insurance for a lifetime?
Only for retirees,
Only
which is
for
something that we've always done.
Okay.
As is per state law.
As is per state law, insurance for a lifetime. Have we ever even thought about the cost of that
This
for
is-
a lifetime?
That
This
is
is
part of our
mandated.
union contract. So anybody who retires within this union contract, even without an incentive, will get their insurances paid for life. So that is just standard. We are just guaranteeing that if they take this incentive, we will guarantee that that will not change in the future.
Just out of curiosity, have you crunched those numbers and figured out how much the lifetime insurance costs?
I myself have not.
Would you be able to do that in the next
Sure.
meeting and bring that figure
Sure.
up?
Sure.
Please, thank you.
Absolutely. Yes.
What's your maximum dollar goal to have retirees retire? I know that you said 9 years someone and you're giving them, wouldn't it be more beneficial to have people who are retiring more closer to the end where they're making maximum dollars as opposed to somebody 9 years? Wouldn't it be?
Not to the
Someone with
taxpayers.
9 years would typically only get the voluntary separation. Someone with 9 years is more than likely, if they're young, they can't retire, they're not vested. So that incentive is just to get people who just don't want to be here anymore to leave.
What is your goal, though, financially?
Well, we're going to start, yes, so we've had, over the last 3 years, there have been a number of retirements in the town. We brought our workforce down, I'm told about, because I wasn't here, but I'm told about 250 positions less than 4 years ago.
It's about 300 from when I started in 2010.
Okay, so about 300 less. So we're going to continue to right-size government. And obviously, someone who's been here longer because of the system that's in place through the contract and through state law, the longer they're here, they generally make more money. So by giving an opportunity for the employees with a longer tenure to retire, the town saves even more money. We have a number of questions on this. You know, we're going to have a hearing on this, just so you know. Yeah,
This is not the hearing. This is just.
This is not the hearing,
Public
just the-
notice for the hearing.
but you're more than welcome. Why don't we finish up, and then we'll bring you up one by one. How's that? Okay? All right, so we got a chance to start this process so people understand. The bottom line is we're looking to save money. We're continuing in every avenue and every process in our town to make the process of town government more efficient, and this is one that many other municipalities, this isn't new to the town of Oyster Bay, this is something many other municipalities have put in place, and I believe on the second incentive, our language is virtually identical to the county's language. All right, so thank you, Vicki. Stay close by. Would you like to come up? Would either of you like to come up to ask a question?
No, I just need to know what the eligibility of retirement is.
Okay.
Years of service, age.
Okay, let's talk about, first let's start off with the state law as it exists. It's a tier process. That is the tier for everyone in the New York State retirement system. And Vicki, why don't we start off with that information?
The retirement incentive that we have is for anybody who is eligible to retire within the New York State and local retirement system. So as long as they deem that you are eligible to retire, we will allow you to retire with this incentive if you fall within the time guidelines.
And what
There
she's
are
asking for those
different
parameters
tiers
for per tier,
have
right.
different age restrictions, different time restrictions. Typically, generically, in a tier 4, which is most of the employees we have right now, minimum age is 55 years of age with a minimum of 5 years of service. But with the 55 and 5, there is a huge age penalty that you would get. Typically, they don't want you to
By
retire
a penalty, so the public understands it, you would receive far
less than you would receive if you waited until you were 62 or if you had 30 years of service. So the number will change and vary between the age and the time, but at the very least, to get anything out of the retirement system, you need to be at least 55 years of age with 5 years of service.
Okay, does that answer your question? So we have people who are eligible to retire, and because of the way that state law mandates our operation, we have one incentive for those who are eligible to retire, and then we went far more proactively, and we're bringing out a second initiative for those who are not eligible to retire, but are interested in breaking service in this town. So this way we can save more money and give these options to a wider spectrum of employees. Today, in this day, at this point in our tier system, what is the number of years that an employee may vest?
They will vest after 5 years.
After 5 years. Okay.
It's 10 years on the new tier 6.
So was 5 many years ago. The state changed it to 10, so we have employees at 5 and employees at 10, depending on when they
Whatever
came
tier
on.
they're in.
What tier they're in. This is state law across the entire state for labor of government employees in any municipality that is in the state retirement system. Any other questions on this particular issue? Yes.
Since this is going to be across the board, do you have any concern about a specific department being impacted more than others, which would leave us in a mission-critical situation where one department might have too many people leaving, and do you have a plan with that?
Yes. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We have an opportunity here to reduce the workforce, especially those who have been here for the longest periods of time. And then through that, it allows us to reorganize our workforce. If we need to transfer employees from one department to another to fit the needs, we have the availability to do that. And so this way we'll see how many employees would like to take, you can't force people, but you give them an incentive to want to take it. That's the purpose of the incentive. So then we get together with our team here, the department heads and the division heads, to look at where the needs are and how we can reorganize our staff to create the greatest efficiencies. To more specifically answer your question, we have no concern that there'll be any problem with services rendered in our town, and it's important to give opportunities for perhaps younger employees, but to give incentives to continue to create efficiencies. You're welcome. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Are there any other speakers?
I still had questions on,
Engel Street property, okay.
and also I had asked about
The resurfacing contract.
Resurface, it's not an error, but let's bring John Bishop up to answer the residents' questions. Okay.
Good morning, John Bishop, San Luis Bay Highway Department Deputy Commissioner. And we have
How you doing? Rich Lenz, Commissioner at the Department of Public Works.
Thank you.
What happened is, for the road restoration, there's multiple pages within the specifications of different items. And I'm just going to use an example. I think it's like maybe 10 pages with maybe 10 items on each page. And then we have a weighted average so that we can then compare from one contractor to the other contractor and the other contractor. So that's the weighted average. So that's $2 million. That's where that $2 million comes from. Then there is also from this year, for 2017 to 2018 in October, is supposed to be $5 million put aside for road restoration, because many a time we've come up here and residents have been complaining about their roads, so we're trying to be proactive now and start working on it. And then the second year, which would be October 19th to October, of 2019 to October 2020, is another $5 million. So that's where the $10 million comes from. Now, what had happened, the docket or the backup information is right, the way it was originally written. When that information got translated into a town board resolution, the resolution only took the $2 million. It didn't take the $5 million, so that's what this correction is. So what this means is that we are allowed to, if approved, we're allowed to spend up to $5 million for the first year to get a road restoration. And then for the next term, we have another $5 million. So what that means, when we say the $2 million, that just is for the contractor to do the work, and there's, as I say, many different items. So as he's doing the work, we estimate before he starts what the work is going to be, and then when he does the actual work, then those numbers are then cataloged, and then John Bishop then takes that information and makes an authorization for payment purposes.
So the $2 million and change is the weighted amount for the contractor to be selected. So when the contract went out to bid by engineering opens up the bids. All of the contractors put in a value next to each one of the items that are in that contract. That is totaled up. We get a weighted amount, which is the $2,800,000, not specific, but that and change. That gives you the lowest responsible bidder for that project and the scope of work that's going to be performed under those items. Knowing that we have an outpour from the residents that we've been dealing with, and I've been personally talking to everybody, that number we felt, well, let's start off with $5 million for the first year, and the second year would be another $5 million. Because the contract, the reso was written as a 2-year contract with 3 one-year extensions. It's not $10 million for 1 year, it's $5 million for each year.
And just so everybody understands too, that does not mean that the contractor gets $5 million. It's just an authorization. It means that if we have a road that we need work to be done, we estimate the whole road, and that could be, a couple of $1 million or less, and then we just keep doing more and more roads, and we take off the bank. So it's like a bank account. You have the $5 million in the bank account, and then we keep deducting from it until we get to, in this particular case, it's going to be winter coming up soon, so we're not going to be able to do much more asphalt in the next couple of weeks. Then we start again in March, April, and start again and taking it down from that bank account. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, Commissioner, I think where the disconnect is that some people don't understand this is a requirements contract.
Thank you.
This isn't a specific job that's being bid.
Very good, thank you.
So that's
Yeah, I
why
should have
the
explained
number,
that.
the weighted average is not the final amount.
It's not a direct bid of $2.9 million would say that that's what the contractor is getting. Why are we authorizing them more to $5 million? It's work orders that will be generated throughout the year from the resident outpour that we are addressing with these road surfaces that need to be, handled.
Just a few questions for the purposes of clarity for our residents. First and foremost, these monies were all voted on in the previous year's budget, correct?
Correct. They're from 14 and 15 calendar year budgets.
From the 14 and 15 calendar year budget. So this has all been approved, and now we're going through the proper steps to ensure that we're carrying out everything legally and ethically.
Correct.
Does this process meet all metes and bounds of the law?
Yes.
Commissioner?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. And finally, we've had conversations about the priorities of getting the road work done. Can you just describe the conversations that I've had with you in terms of our town board's priority to ensure that we get our roads repaved and repaired and updated?
At many meetings here at the town board meetings, we've addressed many residents and communities and have captured those areas, streets, and have made a priority list. In addition to that, the engineering department has gone through the exercise of creating a new rating system so that all roads will be then assessed. We're going to try to wrap our arms around the worst-case scenarios and then build off of that with the new system that the engineering department has done a display here of how they're prioritizing and making a determination what would be a road reconstruction contract and what work would be a total bid job, which would be, as the councilman Ambroto had indicated, would be something that engineering would put out to bid, and that final number is your final number. And those jobs mainly deal with the curbs, gutters, drainage systems, and we've discussed some of those at town board as well, with the areas in Glen Head on William Street and Linden Place, and those areas are being currently designed through engineering.
We've had numerous discussions about getting this work done as quickly as possible.
Yes.
And this new system, that is a priority system. This is one and the same system that we displayed publicly at a public meeting to show the public how we're creating this priority and what the system entails.
Correct.
It's also important to let people here, as well as those perhaps watching online, to know that if you would like our experts to come to your civic association meeting, your government or your community association, we'd be happy to bring this program there so everyone can see, so we can have full transparency, and we're getting the information out on how we are creating this priority system to determine who gets their roads done in what order.
Absolutely.
I just want to explain one other thing, too. This project is just road restoration, meaning just the roadway. There will be another contract that will be coming out in the next couple of weeks that is for road reconstruction, meaning sidewalk, curb, if it's damaged.
Drainage.
And also drainage. And taking care of the road also. So there's two different contracts that will be doing this type of work. These are just repaving the road. That's it.
And the other contract that will come out through engineering is the drainage general requirements contract. And currently, Highway does have a list that we've been building up to where there are basin failures. And there's a few on the page here and there. We've done what we can do in-house, but it's gotten to the point where the road needs to be excavated, pipes need to be replaced, and then new pipes installed, and then a road surface and curb and gutter would be installed.
Okay. And again, for clarity for the public's purposes, we didn't arrive at this through a mistake. Isn't it correct that this is part of the procedure to ensure that we are both ethically and legally following all of the laws in terms of procurement?
Well put, yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have any other questions? All right, thank you. And I'm going to call on our town attorney next to talk to us about this question of some legal fees that we're paying from, as it relates to issues from years ago or previous years.
Chief Deputy Scalera will address.
Thank you. Would you please give us your name and information for the...
Yeah, good morning, Frank Scalera, Chief Deputy Town Attorney. You wanted to discuss the...
Yes, there's an item on the calendar that relates to a payment for legal services.
Right.
And we'd like to clarify that for the public.
This is payments for a law firm that the town of Oyster Bay used from approximately March of 2015 through October or November of 2016. So they haven't provided any legal services since last year. There was outstanding bills from this firm. This firm was sent us the bill in our office. Joe Nacella, myself, I kept them in the loop. This is obviously a bill that was, and services that we utilized before Town Attorney Joe Nacella joined us. That's why he asked me to come up and speak about it. The bill was approximately $845,000, but I was able to negotiate it about 20% off that bill.
At my request.
Of course, for the efficiencies and some of the cost savings, and I was able to approximately, about a 20% reduction, which is about $169,000 and change. So basically, they were retained back at that period of time to assist the town of Oyster Bay in responding to any and all requests and cooperating with any and all authorities regarding the former town concessionaire matter.
Just for the purposes of clarity, these hours of work that we're being billed for took place well before most of us came to this town board.
Yes.
And, but none of it was paid previously, so now we're getting the bill.
Correct. It's just basically paying an outstanding invoice, and we took the opportunity during this period of time to negotiate, and they were willing to do so, and we pay the bill outright with a 20% discount.
And again, for clarity for the public, from time to time, there was the perception that the town spent money for an individual's criminal defense. We obviously are not spending any money, and this money does not go to anyone's criminal defense.
No, this firm, by resolution back in 15, was retained by the town of Oyster Bay.
For the town's
not
interest of
correct,
governmental
not for
taxpayers
any
and the
individual.
public.
Correct, not for any, excuse me for talking, not for any individual's criminal issues, if any.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions from our board members? Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Are there any other speakers on our resolutions?
Just the Angle Street question I had.
Yes, we're going to have to ask you to come up if you'd like to ask another question, just so we're...
Question, it was the
Okay.
appraisal
Please.
that we got on the, I had asked it up there, on the Angle
Yes.
Street property.
Please allow the record to reflect, so that we're following all the rules of transparency, that those comments were made by Bob Fryer, who asked them previously at the podium. Okay, on this one, we'll again refer to our town attorney's office. Would you please step up to the podium, Mr. Nocell? Sure, thank you. Just wait a moment, and we'll get the employee who was most involved in this project. Thank you. On the resolutions, okay. Thank you. Good morning.
Yes.
Would you please state your presence?
Thomas M. Sabelico, Special Counsel.
Thank you. We had a question in regard to the Angle Street property. If you can give us a brief overview of that, including our value as per the experts.
Okay. The property was acquired approximately 3 or 4 years ago with thoughts that it might be used for redevelopment. It was apparent now over the past couple of years that it's not going to be used. In order to determine a possible value for sale, the town board adopted a resolution authorizing an appraisal. The appraisal was obtained. The reason for the appraisal was to set an upset price for an RFP, so that when now for RFP, we knew what a minimum would be at fair market value. That having been said, the RFP that's prepared has that appraised value plus the cost of the appraisal as the minimum upset price. If an RFP is issued, it's not binding upon the town board to accept any offer, but that would determine the real market value, as because there are 4 or 5 interested parties already who have indicated their interest in it. So if an RFP is published, the prices that come in, as long as they meet the minimum, we know what the appraised value is, would determine the true market value.
And are we
And then the
allowed,
town board can make the decision whether to accept it or not.
and are we allowed to publish what the appraiser came in at prior to?
It's in the resolution.
RFP?
Yes.
Okay, so can you tell us what that amount is?
I don't have the resolution in front of me, Supervisor, but I believe it's,
2.720
right,
million. I do have a question.
correct.
Sure.
The reason that I believe this was put over originally was because Council Macagnon, who isn't here today, had a question regarding, this parcel was originally, we were contemplating using it for relocation of the facilities
Correct.
at Miller Place.
Correct.
So, for me, and I mean to speak for Tony because he's not here, but how can we declare it surplus if we don't know, are we relocating, and if not, what are we doing with our facilities at DPW, and can we rightfully declare this as surplus if we still need it?
Well, that determination wouldn't be made by me. That determination would be made by the supervisor's office or the deputy supervisor in consultation with the Commissioner of Public Works and the town board. And it's brought to my attention to prepare the resolution that we're not going to develop it, we're not going to build on that property.
So to more specifically answer your question, we're looking at all of our options, and we'd be happy to meet with you in the very near future with staff members so that we can get some of your input as to some of the ideas you have. We're negotiating and we're looking at all options as to what is the best option and the best cost-effective way to provide the services that are now that now stem from the Mill Street property.
Is it possible that we can put
Councilwoman,
this?
for argument's sake, if you issue the RFP and the proposals that come back aren't what the town board deems to be of value to the town, you can refuse them and not declare it surplus. But if someone should come back and say they want to offer $5 million for that property, that might change your opinion.
Sure, I get
Right.
that, but again, it was, as far as I can recall, put over till today, and obviously it was a very busy time for the last month.
Yes.
I'm just wondering if we might not adjourn it one more time so that we can have those conversations.
Well, it doesn't mean we have to sell the property, and quite frankly, to see what the market will bear, because there's a financial component to a move, part of the information we need in making these decisions together as a board should be to see what kind of revenue that property would generate. As we have discussed before, there are financial considerations in the move, in construction of new facilities that accomplish the services, as was pointed out earlier, that we have to continue to provide these services. We have to continue to have easily accessible points for sand and salt, the storage of vehicles, the maintenance of those vehicles, which is something that so few people realize. To keep those trucks going on the roads, we maintain our vehicles, and having worked with our staff during multiple snowstorms in 2017, I saw just how valuable those facilities are. So by determining what value that property could bring, it helps in the overall decision-making process. And I agree with you, it's not about rushing to sell the property, it's about collecting up as much data, sharing it with the public, sharing it with the town board, so that we can have all of the tools at our disposal in terms of making the best decisions for our taxpayers and our residents.
But just so I'm clear, this is a resolution authorizing putting it for sale. It's like putting your house on the market when you're not sure if you want to sell it or not.
To see what it will bear, yes, to see what monies it will bring in,
You've
which
already
will help
incurred the
us.
cost of the appraisal. The cost of the RFP is just to publish the notice, and it's not binding upon the town to accept it.
Okay, thanks.
And thank you, Councilwoman, for bringing up these issues. It's very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Sabelko. Our next speaker is Arthur Edelman. Come on up, Arthur. How are you? Doing well today? Good.
Seeing clean streets again, you know, the signs are disappearing. Quick question.
Yeah, I wish everyone
Yes.
was as focused on removing their signs as we are.
Call your friends in the county. It looks like most of their signs. Town races look like they're gone. Anyway, back to the resolution. I have a question.
Not all of them. Thank you.
Resolution 746 regards rearranging the Oyster Bay Municipal Parking Lot in Massapequa. I was just curious if that's town-owned property, or does the town rent the space?
Town-owned.
Town owns it.
Yes, we can get a confirmation on that from, I believe that's Mr. Bishop. Please come forward again, or just state your presence, please, for the record.
John Bishop, Deputy Commissioner, Highway Department. The lots in Massapequa that we're addressing on M1 and M11 are town-owned lots. There are portions of these lots that the railroad still maintains ownership of. That portion is closer to the track. It's not where the parking is.
Okay.
And the changing of the lot for commuters was pushed by the residents that are
Requested
looking for
by the public.
spaces, and so we've adjusted a lot of the metered parking and removed some of the other restrictions so that we can accommodate. So by doing this, we're adding 54 spots this year, and in 2017, in M10, we added 76 additional spaces, and in 2015, in M10, we added 107 spaces.
Fine by me. The other question I had regarding the revising
Made by
of,
Mr.
that's you,
Bishop.
the revising of that legal bill, that $800,000 that we owed, whatever the law firm was,
Yes.
that was in this year's budget or last year's budget as like an accounts payable of $800,000, and the town attorney has now saved us $160,000 actual. I mean, the realization is a true savings of so we have an open $160,000 to spend? Because I have some suggestions.
You're trying to spend money while we're trying to save money. There has been a realization of savings, that is correct.
All right, I think that's important.
Yes, thank you. And Mr. Edelman, thank you for coming up to speak about commuter parking. I would like to comment, and this is good food for thought for all of our board members, that through my conversations in this year with the residents, it's very clear that a larger and larger number of people are commuting for work, and therefore the need for parking spots at our railroad stations is clearly growing. So we have listened to the public, and this is something on our consideration list of how to assist them better in this going forward. But the public has been heard, no doubt. Yes? Yes? That's okay. So he's got to tell me what I said to motivate him to come up. I'll keep that in mind for next time.
No, I have a question on the parking lot.
Okay, so why don't you hold off and just fill out a sheet like everyone else, please? I appreciate that very much, Mr. Sklar.
I tried to follow his parking lot.
Yes, thank you. So this way, part of this is for the purposes of full transparency, to ensure that everyone is coming up with the proper procedure, and it assists to make the record as the very best it can be. All right, don't walk away, Paul, because you're next. Mr. Paul Molinari of Hicksville. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Mr. Supervisor and town board members. Paul Molinari, 332 West Nikolai Street, Hicksville. On the Engel Street property, at the last meeting, Joel Pierce, who was the Northwest Civic Association president, brought up the issue about the people were promised a park there, a dog park, and possible relocation of some of the town facilities. Me, myself, I'm not totally in favor of that, but the commitment was made to the Hicksville residents for a park. So I was wondering, if the property is sold, where do those monies go? Do they go into the general fund, or is there some way of designating them that they could be used for a park in downtown Hicksville as part of the revitalization committee program?
Okay, I'm going to bring up our Director of Finance to answer that question, and would you please start off, sir, by stating your presence?
Good morning, Supervisor and Town Board. I'm Rob Darienzo. I'm the Director of Finance. The Ingle Street property was purchased with what we call C-Fund money, Save Environmental Assets. Those are capital funds. So the entirety of the purchase price would need to go back into the C-Fund. Any amount in excess of what the original purchase price was would go into the general fund and could be used however is deemed necessary.
However the board deems necessary. Do we know how much was spent on the property with the C-Fund money?
It's my understanding it was $2.5 million.
Okay, thank you very much. Paul, does that answer all your questions?
What is the C-Fund doing?
Okay, let's talk about a little bit of the history. There were three C-Fund bonds that the voters of the town of Oyster Bay approved. Talk to us about those, please. What years, how much?
All right, this is off the top of my head. There were three C-Fund authorizations. I believe there were 2001, 2004, and 2008. They totaled $120 million, 60, 30, and 30, respectively. And part of that money was to be used for the acquisition of open space, to preserve open space, and part of it was meant to be used for the improvement of existing park facilities and open space. So all three of those authorizations were subject to a public vote, election days of those 3 calendar years, and it's my recollection that they passed roughly 3-1 each year, 75-25, overwhelmingly.
Can you give us approximately the dates or the month and year, or just the years if that's all you recall, so it can put in perspective so the public can understand when they voted to borrow this money?
Yes, it's my memory that it was 2001, 2004, and 2008 were the years of the 3 referendums.
The 3 referendums, and we believe, to the best of recollection, that the public overwhelmingly, as much as 3-1, voted in favor directing the town to borrow this money.
Absolutely. I would be shocked if it was less than 70%. I think it was closer to 75.
And as per law, we went out and bought the property, and when we sell any of these properties, that money has to be paid off. Is that correct?
Well, those funds would go back into the existing C-Fund. So let's say, for example, the C-Fund money was all spent. In this case, if we sold the property for $2.7 or $3 million, $2.5 million would go back into the C-Fund, the excess would go into our general fund, and then you would have $2.5 million available in the C-Fund to purchase an additional piece of open property, only for that purpose.
Or to pay off that debt.
Or you could pay down debt, existing debt, correct.
Is another option. Okay, thank you very much. And in terms of the open space, I know I'm an environmentalist, and I know my colleagues on the town board share a tremendous love of our environment. Can we just speak to the fact that all of these properties that were purchased to preserve our precious environment, to allow for percolation of rainwater, to our aquifer system, to ensure drinking water, do we still own all of them?
Yes, as far as I know, every piece of property that we purchased through the 3 C-Funds are still under our ownership.
And so in fact, well, we are not asking this question of you as a environmental expert. The bottom line is the public asked us to borrow the money. The town borrowed the money. As recently as 2008 was the last time that was purchased. The town purchased the open space to preserve the environment, and the environment is still being preserved because this town still owns that precious land.
That's all correct, and just so we're clear, the authorizations were in 2001, 2004, and 2008. But the other authorizations have a period of probable usefulness of 15 to 30 years. So because we had authorizations as recently as 2008, doesn't mean we only acquired lands in 2008. That money is available from 2008 to, say, 2023. So the money that was spent on Ingle Street in particular was not in 2008. I think Mr. Sabelico said it was 3 or 4 years ago when we purchased this piece of property.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Paul, all your questions were answered?
Yes,
thank you. Okay, it looks like Larry Sklar is our next speaker. Come on up, Mr. Sklar.
My question is,
After reading the papers on the Massapequa parking lot,
Yes.
I think that this is the same lot that we talked about a study a few months ago.
The Massapequa parking
Okay.
lot at the Massapequa
I think we
Railroad
mentioned
Station.
that we were hoping it would increase some more handicap parking in it.
Yes.
The proposal's only for 4 parking spaces, over 100. I mean, they're going to take away 10 metered parking for residents, but we forget about the handicap people.
Well, I believe we have some more. Let's get an answer on that from
Yeah, we
Mr.
spoke to
Bishop.
Mr. Bishop about it back 3 months ago.
Mr. Bishop, would you please come forward? Thank you, Mr. Sklar. You can please take a seat. We'll get your question answered right now.
Hello.
Thank you, sir.
In this lot in particular, because we're dealing with the M11 lot, we had made 5 handicap parking spaces.
5 additional.
5 additional handicap parking spaces when we removed 4-hour parking restrictions. Once this goes through, then the signs will then change and you'll see the.
And how did we come about determining that number?
There's, we have a traffic survey department that will go through the process. Our sign bureau will look at the whole lot on the schematic, see where we can put the spaces, because we want the handicap spaces to be either closer to the train stations or closer to any business districts, depending on where the lots are situated.
And are we guided by state guidelines or mandates, state law on this?
Yes, that's what, that law or dictates where they can and cannot place a handicap space.
Well, John, I'm instructing you to please speak with our team, our engineering team, and to lean toward additional handicapped lots above and beyond what the state calls for.
And,
Mr. Sklar brings up a very good point. For our veterans, for people of all ages, for people of different ability levels, we certainly have to target their needs as well.
If there is a specific lot that is used more, then
Right.
I would
No,
like to know
those
that
papers
lot,
just-
that lot number, because
Larry,
all the
I'll tell you
lots-
why don't you wait around, and after this meeting, please spend a few moments with John, because your input is greatly appreciated and can be very helpful. Okay?
No, the existing papers list 4 handicap parking spaces, which is the existing. It doesn't say the addition, and that's what I was questioning. Of course, we went through this once before.
He's just told us that additional
Right.
spots, but I'd like very much if you
And we're
don't
increasing
mind.
5, that's very good, thank you.
Yes, I'm glad
You
you're
know what
happy with
happens?
that.
10 years ago, you didn't need it, but 10 years from now, you might need it too.
Well, thank you for considering that. I appreciate your forethought on that. But we're thinking about all of our residents, not only based on age, but people of all ages have a variety of needs.
I just want to add one more comment. I wish the whole building department, we can go through what the town's requirements are. Because believe it or not, you go into a lot of shopping centers and everything, and you have 10 people walking with Ks and 1 person walking in. And we really need more handicap parking today. I wouldn't have said this 15 years ago, but it's needed. It really is.
Larry,
And you know, the codes, we just keep going on with what we're doing, and we really don't pick it up.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I have been having conversations with our Commissioner of Planning and Development, and she is here with us today.
Lovely person.
Very capable, consummate professional. And in our conversations, we have been talking about changing our town codes, and that's one of our priorities, to work with our town board members to change our codes, to update them, to change things of the past that we've realized could be done better, and to make improvements that make sense for all of our residents. So that's something we're looking at, and we're looking forward to the input of all of our board members as well as the public. So we want to continue to work with you to make our codes better.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Thanks for being here. Is there any other speakers on these resolutions? Anyone else? Is there any correspondence?
I'll call for the vote.
Please, will Town Clerk Altadonna please call for a vote?
Okay. Supervisor Saladino.
Aye.
Councilman Muscarella is absent. Councilman McEnon is absent. Councilwoman Alessia.
Aye.
Councilwoman Johnson.
Aye.
Councilman Ambroto.
Aye.
Councilman Han.
Aye.
Motion to adopt resolutions TF 16-17 through resolution 765 noting that we added the walk-on TF 17-17, the remove from the table 659, as well as walk-on 765, passes with 5 ayes. The calendar is complete.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to ask our team to ensure that the communities that were interested in that gas station be alerted to the changes that they were listened to, that the hours of operation will fall into the recommendations the public has made. Very, very happy to work with the community to get that done in a way that's best for them. All right, we have public comment from a number of people. By the way, thank you again for all of the cooperation of our board members. I want to comment about how incredibly professional and helpful they are at every turn. I feel extremely lucky to be working with such exceptional elected officials on our town board, each one elected and each one doing an incredible job to do the people's work. So on behalf of myself, but also on behalf of our residents, I want to take a moment to thank all of our town board members, those here and those who are not able to reach us today, for their great work. You're very welcome.
A motion to close the meeting before public comment?
Yes. May we have that motion?
Make a motion that this meeting be closed and we proceed with our public comment period.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. And thank you all for attending our meeting. If those who would like to stay around for the public comment portion are welcome to.
Supervisor, could I take a point of personal privilege and speak first? Because I'm the only one up here that didn't just complete an election, I just wanted to take a moment to congratulate all of you. I know that there are some people in the room that were candidates in this election this year as well on both sides. I think it was a hard won, but also a very fair election. People were courteous. I think you all did an outstanding job. It was obviously a very decisive win, and I just want to congratulate you all and say, I, for one, and on behalf of the workforce, we are very proud and happy to be continuing to work together for the residents. So congratulations to you all.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. Our first speaker on the public comment will be Harold Searing. I hope I pronounced that right, sir.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
My name is Harold Searing at 3 Surrey Lane, Massapequa Park, New York. I sent a resolution out by email last night concerning the Child Victims Act. And the New York State Senate has not passed this bill for many years, and I wanted you guys to realize that you can take a step in the right direction to get this bill passed. And I'm going to tell you why I'm so involved in this bill. When I was 10 and a half to the ages of 16, I was sexually abused by someone from Big Brothers and one of my school teachers at St. Joseph's in Babylon. These memories have never left me. I hid them, and when at the age of 42, they popped back in my head. And since then, just because they look okay outside, my mental life is torture. I have nothing but flashbacks to the very first time I was abused. I went to Florida on business. I had to stop working because I was abused there. And this is, it's a cry, because what you see in the media today is this has to stop. So what I sent to you is a proposed resolution, whereas the town of Oyster Bay would sign a resolution or proclamation, whatever you want to call it, and deliver it to our senators to get this bill passed. The long-term effects is what's really serious about this. The mental illness and all the, me personally, I suffer from shame and embarrassment. I'm not a public speaker. I don't want to come up here at all. but I figured we're going to have to get the town involved. There's a lot of pushback from the Roman Catholic Church, and the Boy Scouts of America have actually hired lobbyists, paid over $2 million in 1 year to prevent this bill, when they only have 5% of the priests. Why are they blocking this bill? They're blocking justice for 95% of the people, just to keep their house the way they want to, and they shouldn't be allowed to do that. Like I said, I suffer from major depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm not working due to these daily flashbacks, and there is no drug or cure to change this. It never goes away. So I'm asking you to help pass this bill, and if you have any questions in the resolution, I would like.
Thank you, sir, for having the bravery and the courage to come before us and speak about such a difficult and personal issue.
Mm-hmm.
You are someone who is truly a leader when it is so difficult to come forward. So many families grapple with this issue, usually in silence, usually suffering. It hurts so many people, but especially the victims. The reason I'm familiar with this is because during my almost 14 years in Albany, that was one of the cornerstones of my work. And we went to many, many hearings and listened to people who have suffered as you have been. But you are truly a strong and special person, and quite frankly, a leader for embracing the courage to come forward and to push with this state issue. So, first and foremost, I want you to know that I'm very interested in lobbying on your behalf and lobbying on behalf of so many of the victims and their loved ones. And I believe that my colleagues on the board feel the same way. So we will take on the responsibility of writing letters to all of our state legislators in the Senate and the Assembly to try to assist in getting a legislation passed in some form that helps you. But if I can...
Can I interject? The Assembly passed the bill 139 to 7.
Yeah.
That's like a major miracle.
I do understand that because I went through that process in Albany when we were trying to get civil confinement passed. We got it passed in the Senate over and over and again to help people from being from stopping reoffenses. And in the Assembly, leadership just wouldn't pass the bill. It passed the Senate over and over. So we see issues that pertain to sexual abuse are always controversial. And if I may give an opinion for a moment, I don't believe it's based on that one political party or one group or one people from one region versus another political party, another group, or another house in the case of Albany, or people from another region don't want to help victims. I think part of this is an educational process into how it works in Albany, and that is that the devil's in the details. And sometimes there is something in the legislation that's written in a way that may help one group while not curing the ill and fixing the problem. So it is our hope that all sides will come together and work out the issues that have hampered this legislation from passing. I know that was the case with civil confinement. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm very, very proud to be part of the team that got the civil confinement legislation passed. That ensures that the worst of the worst can be put back in, be kept out of the mainstream of the public even after their very short jail sentences are completed. People complained it's not constitutional, and yet 17 states in the highest courts in those states. And in addition to that, the United States Supreme Court ruled that, in fact, civil confinement was constitutional, and we were still trying to get the State Assembly to put the bill out to pass it. We finally got a version of it passed that at least does some of the work, and we will continue to work with you, to work with organizations that support those who have been abused, to get legislation passed in the way that it has the greatest impact. And we again thank you very, very much to proving that you have tremendous courage to come forward and talk about this very sensitive issue.
Thank you.
We wish you well. God bless. Ladies and gentlemen, you just saw an example of true leadership. True leadership. Our next speaker for the public comment section is Stephen Myers. Hi, Mr. Myers, how are you?
Supervisor and board members. Hi, I'm Steve Myers from 117 Colony Lane, member of the Southwood Circle Association, and of course, Oyster Bay resident. I came before the board about 7 months ago to discuss with you the issue of the growing problem of security lighting in our residence and community. You were very kind to set up a meeting with Commissioner Macaron and Deputy Commissioner. We had a very good meeting. We met for about a half an hour, and I did follow up at the time, this is back in March, April, with a series of web links to some documents supporting the need for some kind of protocol with security lighting. Did send those over. Now, many months have gone by. It's been the summer. We've had a lot of foliage. A lot of the glare issues have been abated a little bit. Now we're moving into winter, and we have another half a year of some discomfort. So I haven't heard anything. I did send an email out about 2 weeks ago, which I did CC you. I don't know if you had time to look at it. Having said that, I did bring in these documents that I researched, and they're very short documents. There are 4 of them, 4 or 5 of them. I can make copies available to you. I don't have them today, please forgive me. And I'm just going to read a few sentences because they're written so
Let me ask
eloquently.
you a quick question. Is the issue with shielding that needs to be installed?
Thank you for bringing it up, and apologize for not
That's the
concluding
that's
at the
the crux of this, that we need shielding?
The issue is shielding for existing harsh LED lighting and the proposal to generate new town code so that we don't experience this problem moving forward. I will tell you, I've done an informal study speaking to neighbors and members of our association. In my own block, we went from 2 or 3 of these type lights to now 4 or 5. So this is going to start to increase, and I can imagine, no doubt in my opinion, in 5 years from now, this is going to be a very serious problem. I'm hoping that we can nip it in the bud.
And that's exactly what we're going to do. You're welcome to read those, but I get the message loud and clear that the residents want relief, and quite frankly, we're moving toward replacing more and more bulbs with LED bulbs because it's a tremendous savings. You might have been here when we did our budget proposal or in one of the subsequent meetings. We have the bulbs that we have replaced, where we went from the older technology to LED bulbs. Many of them we received at no cost through a NYSERDA grant.
Oh, Supervisor, I don't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
The town is doing a great job when it comes to public lighting. I'm speaking about residential lighting.
Residential.
I'm sorry to
Okay,
create
I'm
confusion.
glad you pointed that out.
Let me read to you. Many of us have experienced this scenario. A neighbor installs a new light on the property. It is unshielded fixture that casts bright light that spills onto your property and perhaps even to your home. This is known as light trespass. I love that definition. And it can cause a lot of agony and frustration. Now, I know that developing new code is something that legislatures do. I don't do this. I'm a resident. However, I did find it on the website, Gilbert, Arizona Code Ordinances. We have a blueprint, folks, of what to do. I'm just going to read Article C. It takes 2 seconds. Outdoor lighting shall be designed as to meet the following goals. Reduce impact of outdoor lighting on residential neighborhoods. Provide minimal spill in the nighttime sky. Encourage the use of energy efficient. Provide a framework, and this is interesting, recommended by the Illuminating Engineering Society of North America. Had no idea this existed. This is probably talking about municipal. However, there are other articles here that talk about how it's been cast into a residential code. May I ask, is it unreasonable to expect, perhaps by the next town meeting, that some of the legislatures can take a half an hour, review this, and maybe we can have some motion or movement in this issue?
It is not unreasonable for you to distribute that to us, for us to take a look at it. I'm very much in favor of changing our code to respect the needs of our residents, including on private property. So I thank you for bringing this to our attention. We absolutely will bring a lot of attention to this. And Commissioner Macaron, would you mind just coming up for a moment, please? Commissioner Macaron, once again, is our Commissioner of the Building Department or Planning and Development, and this is where this would stem from. I know you've been working on this because we've had conversations about ways in which to change the code. Can you just give us a brief overview so that all of our residents understand that this is something that we've discussed and that we are making a priority in terms of changing our code with the cooperation and assistance of all of the elected officials, all our town board members, and the input of the public?
I do want to start off and offer an apology to Mr. Myers. I know you sent the email about 2 weeks ago, and unfortunately, I did not get back to you. Sometimes when I read it on my phone and I'm not at my desk with all the ones coming in, but
you did see it.
yes, so I apologize. Where we are, as you know, earlier this year, we had talked about all these changes of the zoning code that need to be done. And we started doing them piecemeal, and a few of them were enacted by this board over this past summer. But then they were building and building, so we decided to kind of take a turn and compile a bunch of code recodifications that we're going to bring before the board. And we've been working with Tom Sabellico and our staff in compiling that list so we can do one large recodification, which, you know, we've had plenty of conversations about all these ordinances that need to be tweaked, and this is one that is on the list to do, along with, you know, a litany of a long list of others.
No, I've given you a lot of work in terms of these recodifications, but I would also like to direct you to raise this particular issue up on the priority list.
Absolutely.
Mr. Myers brings up very important points, and it quite frankly fits. As we started the meeting, we talked about making our town more resident-friendly. We talked about the fact that we have just announced a new task force specifically for protecting our quality of life.
This is perfect.
This is perfect. It really meets the needs of our residents in terms of quality of life. And please ensure that this is moved way up on the priority list.
I will.
Along with the other agendas that we spoke of. I directed the commissioner with the input of our board members, because they all have felt the same way, that we need to improve our codes.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Board. And if I can conclude, I do want to say, just to be fair, I don't think a lot of residents that do put up these high-powered security lights are aware that there's a problem, and this is an issue. So that's why it becomes the responsibility of the town to say, hey, folks, you're, believe it or not, ruining the quality of life for another resident, which you may not want that for yourself. And just in conclusion, I think there are some quick fixes for the issues we have currently where residents have spent money, good money on these lights. Simple shielding units and things like that can be provided, and they're very low cost. Quality of life and resolution of some of the codes, which you spoke about earlier. Thank you so much.
Mr. Myers, I'd just like to thank you for coming forward. This is the way it's supposed to work. Some people turn on their television and they think that the way to get government to do something is picket signs and protests. But what you have just demonstrated is the best of the best. This is how government makes those improvements. You've done research, you've been proactive, you brought suggestions, you're making the time to meet with our staff, and you're bringing this to our attention, which I believe is a very important quality of life. And we're cognizant of that. We're also cognizant of the fact this, like so many other issues that our town board and our governmental experts deal with, there's a component of listening to the public. There's a component of utilizing the experience that we have, as well as the experience of other municipalities, what they've done. And there is an education component to this. Like so many things we're doing to quickly change town government, and we've accomplished so many things in just 10 months, but an important component is educating the public so they understand why we need to make these changes and to keep in mind their perspective. Perspective comes in so many ways. We have areas in the town of Oyster Bay that have some of the higher elevations anywhere on Long Island. So if your property is much higher than your neighbor's, you have to keep your perspective in mind, because your shielding or your light placement may be appropriate for your elevation where your home is, but because you're at a different elevation than your neighbors, it may have a far more graduated effect, far more intensive effect. So we will be keeping all of these factors in mind, not just the basics of how lighting affects residents in level areas of the town of Oyster Bay, because we know our town communities have many different elevations.
Thank you very much for the compliment.
Thank you. You deserve that. We'd like to encourage all residents to act the way you're acting. We appreciate it very, very much, especially going forward. Okay, on that note, our next speaker is Jonathan Clark. Hi, Jonathan. Welcome to our town board meeting. How are you?
Good, good. So I'm here on behalf of the Breezy Point Civic Association. As you can see, we have about 8 members are here. And, well, I want to first start off by saying that we're going to talk about the issue of the zombie homes, and that was brought to the attention of myself and also Mr. Altadonna at a recent debate that we had prior to the election. And I know that Mr. Altadonna is working very hard on that issue, and he's actually done some good work so far.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
I can't do it.
We are all working on this together, and we have been for some months.
Right. So we're very appreciative of what you've been doing so far.
Thank you.
However, what we're concerned about and what we want to know is there was recently a law passed last year, Real Property Law 1308, which basically puts the onus on the banks to keep the properties in repair or to sell them after they've been obtained through foreclosure process. Now, what happens is if these houses become vacant and they're zombie homes, Real Property Law 1308 allows the town to sue the banks in Nassau Supreme Court and impose a $500 a day fine for each day that these houses remain vacant or in code violation. What we want to know in the Breezy Point Civic Association is that it's nice that the condemnation proceedings are being done on some homes, but what's happening with Real Property Law 1308, which was passed specifically for this issue?
If you kindly take a seat, we'll bring up our town attorney, and we will give our public, those watching on the internet, those here, and all concerned, updates on our progress on this very important initiative. By the way, that's an initiative in terms of zombie homes that I supported as a state legislator, representing, among other areas, the very community that I've been proud to represent for 14 years. So,
Joseph Nocello, Town Attorney, Supervisor, 10 members of the Town Board. We are right now, as a result of a state grant, revising our code so that we can make a more efficient determination as to when a zombie home is unsafe, and we can more efficiently demolish a zombie home and eliminate it. One of the specifics regarding the bank-owned homes is that we're looking to change what we now do, which is an assessment that is placed on the property
property because of the maintenance that needed to be done in the bank's absence or in their failure into a lien that will be held onto the property so that it is done more timely, and that way we are able to collect the funds when it has become necessary for us to actually take the work. With respect to the banks that own these particular homes, there are practical problems that we're trying to find solutions to. In certain instances, the banks are actually out of state. And as a consequence, despite the legislation that we currently have now, we are not necessarily able to force those banks to perform the maintenance that needs to be done. In those cases, we have undertaken it. And we've undertaken to maintain the property until such time as the property can be demolished and or sold and or rehabilitated. And as I note, one of the steps along that path is to move from merely making an assessment against the property into having a lien filed against the property, so that when the town has to step in, because an out-of-state bank is not doing what it's required to do by law, we will be able to be reimbursed. The taxpayers will be out no money. The house will be maintained in a safe condition until such time as it could be taken down. Now, we are very serious about taking down and remediating these issues in all communities across our town. We understand that in a portion of Massapequa that there is a large number, disproportionate number of these homes for a variety of reasons, especially the effects of 2 hurricanes in 2 years, or Superstorm Sandy and Hurricane Irene. So we have been in the process of going to court on certain homes, for instance, to ensure that the public knows that we are fighting for you and that we have to respect and abide by the legal process. Can you give them an update?
Yes.
As to what we've done so far in court as it relates to these homes in East Massapequa?
Yes, we have provided notice to the owners of record with respect to 2 of the homes. I'd be correct in noting that they're on Clocks, I believe it's Clocks Avenue, not Clocks Road.
Clocks Boulevard.
I'm sorry, thank you, appreciate the correction, but we have provided notice. And in one instance, the home was recently sold by a short sale. The new owner came forward, and we have entered into an agreement with that new owner that the home will be rehabilitated and renovated on an expedited basis. And the best part for the town is, if it is not done to our satisfaction and pursuant to code, which we're going to assist in expediting the renovation and rehabilitation of the home, if it is not done, the owner has consented to the entry of a judgment that would allow us to demolish the home. So they have every incentive to do the right thing, to rehabilitate and renovate. And it's my understanding from talking to Commissioner Macarone that they've already been in to the building department to make an application for the renovations and the rehabilitation.
I see Commissioner Macarone nodding her head yes, that's taken place already. Now, for clarity, for everyone in the room, you mentioned that we have taken certain steps in court, but so everyone understands and that this is absolutely clear, talk about why we have taken these steps.
Certainly.
And what the legal process is that we must follow.
One of our current code provisions, and bear in mind, we're trying to revise the codes in such a way that it will give greater authority to the town at the request of our citizens who are being hardshipped in
so we can clean these sites up much more quickly than we had the legal ability to do in the past.
Precisely. But under our current code, one basis for taking down a home on 72 hours notice is the fact that it is structurally unsound. If it's structurally unsound and the commissioner is able to make that determination, we have an engineer give a report. We would give 72 hours notice maximum to the homeowner and then simply take the structure down. The onus would be on the homeowner then to march into court to try to get a restraining order. And I wish them luck if they ever tried that, because the declaration of an unsafe structure is likely to be determined in our favor, and we would remove the home immediately. In most instances, however, we're not dealing with structurally unsound buildings that are imminently going to collapse. What we're dealing with are eyesores, attractive nuisances, conditions that would allow...
Give a pardon me for interrupting you, it's very difficult to use the word attractive as an adjective. These are not attractive at all, but
No,
I
it is not in
understand
the
the legal
least.
term.
And I used it in the same sentence with eyesore. So if I could explain what I meant by an attractive nuisance, some group of, let's say, teenagers having nothing better to do than to engage in a little mischief sees a boarded-up home. They take a screwdriver, a pliers, or something like that, unply some of the wood, hop inside, and do whatever it is that
Tracks them for usually no good intention.
Right. Not because it's aesthetically pleasing. On the contrary, these things are almost always aesthetically hideous, and that is one of the chief complaints. So by attractive nuisance, I merely mean it attracts dangerous circumstances. It's not structurally dangerous because it's not about to collapse, but it creates dangers to health and safety in other respects. That is the second basis for which we would be able to take down a home, but we have to respect the property rights, even if it's only owned by a bank.
This is what I'm getting at. Please explain to the public why we have to respect the property rights, why we can't just, order of the supervisor, go over there with our bulldozers and take that nuisance, that eyesore, that horrific structure down immediately.
These are fundamental rights that people have, the right to property, and they have a right to due process. So when we come forward...
Which means they have a constitutional right to go through a process in court.
Correct.
Before we're allowed to take it down, even though we would like to knock these structures down and haul away all the debris immediately.
Right. And it's usually defined as notice and an opportunity to be heard. In the case of something that looks like it's in an imminent danger of collapse, that trumps even the due process.
So how long could it be before we can get these sites? Because the public is here to hear what we're doing about this, quite frankly, and all of our elected officials want these sites cleaned up, including our town clerk, James Altadonna, who's done a wonderful job at keeping this issue on the front burner. Myself, I live not far from this area, although I represent all of our town's residents equally. But it's very clear we have to move fast on this. And I know that part of the frustration, the major part of the frustration, is that the court process slows this down.
Yes.
How quickly can we legally get these kind and thoughtful residents the relief they deserve?
It's impossible for me to give you an actual definitive answer, I'm afraid, because notice once given triggers the opportunity for the homeowner, be it a bank or some absentee landlord or some estate, they have the time to respond. If they don't respond...
How much time are they allowed?
I believe it's 7 days.
7 days.
And if they do not respond, then we are in a position to take some action. When they do respond, take, for example, the case of one of the homes where we got a response, but we also got a very helpful resolution by the new owner. If they do respond, then they are entitled to have the matter discussed if they want to take issue with the town's position. So if they want to litigate this, either by coming before the town board at a public hearing or even by marching into court, if the town board were to rule and to vote that this house has to be demolished and should be demolished, they would still have the opportunity to have a day in court before a judge. The judges control their own calendars, and I'm afraid there's not much that can be done to force it along. So it all depends upon who the owner is, what their response is, whether or not they're in compliance with the law, and as well as the state of the house. Then if we get to a courtroom situation, then we are also bound, I'm afraid, by the rules of the judge and the speed with which the judge wants to take the matter under consideration.
Okay. Well, then I am going to take this opportunity to instruct you and Commissioner Macarone that this issue has gone on for too long. Our residents deserve relief, and while we are clearly following every protocol in the law to bring them relief, we must continue to make this our highest priority. The people in this community are hardworking, good people who have been active in civic matters and even protecting America as our veterans. We appreciate them very much, and we must continue to keep this on the front burner, first and foremost. And my colleagues on the town board and I direct you and direct Commissioner Macarone to get the job done, to stop people from using their homes for business purposes, to ensure that whether someone is doing car repairs as a business in their driveway, which is not a permitted use, that code enforcement clamp down on this very quickly. You know, we have created this new task force for exactly this kind of issues. Quality of life issues of what's going on. And I'm directing Highway to also travel down to Clocks Boulevard and the side streets in this vicinity to make a listing of broken sidewalks, catch basins and drains that are clogged, and get them the relief they deserve. The people in this community are very, very important to me, but quite frankly important to all of us. And I think of my father, Councilman Joseph Saladino, who worked so hard with the Breezy Point Civic Association leaders, and sir, you remember him. And we are going to continue their good work. So I am directing you to make this our highest priority. Commissioner, directing you to make this our highest priority. Also, DPW Commissioner Lenz and John Bishop, get our resources down there, get this on the schedule, fix those broken sidewalks, unclog those drains, ensure that no one is using their driveway or their residential property as a commercial enterprise, and let's get this neighborhood up to par. They've suffered way too much by the hurricane and the slowdowns that insurance companies and all of New York Rising has foisted upon them, and let's make sure the town of Oyster Bay is not part of the hurdles, but part of the solution. Thank you.
I do have a question for the town attorney, though. In regard to Law 1308, and as you said, that law passed when you were in the State Assembly, this implies that the bank will have a $500 a day fine for each day that the houses are vacant, regardless of when it's brought into court. So the date that the summons is issued, that starts its toll for the $500 a day fine. Now, it's well and good that these houses will be condemned and knocked down, but if there's 50 homes just in East Massapequa alone that are acquiring this $500 a day fine, that's $50,000 per day that are going to the banks that they will have to pay to the town. I'm still concerned. I'm not sure why we're not bringing suit under 1308. We're doing it in other municipalities.
Mr. Clark,
yes.
I'm going to direct you to make an appointment to sit with our town attorney. This is a very important issue. We set this in, I say we, meaning my previous career as a state legislator representing East Massapequa. I'm going to direct you to make an appointment to sit with our town attorney so that we're utilizing every leverage we can to get this job done.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're going to request that you make an appointment with the town attorney.
My passion is coming through because I really want this done right away, but I thank you, Councilman. Arthur Edelman, please. You're going to pass. Okay. Thank you. And finally, last up, Rosemarie Coate. Thank you for joining us here today.
Hi, good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Rosemarie Coates. I live at 35 Pirates Cove, and I moved here exactly 7 years ago from the Bronx. And I didn't move here to see garages or people fixing cars in the street, blocking the street. Their houses are filled with 4 and 5 cars in the driveway, with 3 outside, and some of them covered with automobile, these covers.
Tarps.
The tarps. And even this morning while we were leaving to come to this meeting, there were 2 guys working on 3 cars, and a cold service truck car passed by. Didn't stop, didn't do anything to these 2 gentlemen who were working on the cars. There's another house on Oakley Street. This one is 550 Clarks Boulevard. The second one is 21 Oakley. And there were cops at 21 Oakley, I believe, a week ago. And the cars are still there. They're still working on it. So we have the police department who's coming, who's doing nothing. We have code enforcement passing by and absolutely doing nothing. I pay taxes.
I understand your point, and I'm going to ask you to meet with our Commissioner Macaron. Commissioner, please raise your hand. All right, to give her those addresses. And Commissioner, I want code enforcement visiting these homes, not a week from now, not 2 weeks, this week. Okay? Because, go ahead.
And then the other issue, we also have a house which I know was sold, 477 Clarks Boulevard. Next to 477 Clarks Boulevard is a lake. There's a catch basin that has been broken there for, I can't tell you how many years. So you have stagnant water, it's full of mosquitoes. We have people who cannot sit in the backyards of their home because of this lake and this broken catch basin. We'd like it to be fixed finally, once and for all. It shouldn't take 20 years to fix a catch basin.
Mr. Bishop, this week, if not tomorrow, please send our inspector there and let's get this fixed.
Thank you very much.
Very much. I just want to, you can have a seat, you can have a seat. I just do want to point out just something, because it's important going forward in the new town of Oyster Bay, that when a code enforcement inspector is going by, they may feel like they're doing nothing in terms of that particular issue, but they're going to another house where an appointment has been made or that a complaint has been registered. So they're in passing to that. But we're going to talk about our retraining, and we've had some conversations, so as to let you know what we're doing to fix some of these ills by retraining our code enforcement people. This way, they would be, when they see these things happening, they can make a point of writing it down so that they can be revisited for an inspection. They still would have to go to the location that they're scheduled to inspect. So they are doing something. They're heading toward a location for a job for that particular day to inspect. As most people know, residents are allowed to work on their own cars for non-commercial purposes and repair their own cars. But this is where our inspectors need the specialized training, so they know specifically when someone is working on their own car as opposed to illegally running a business. And this is why we created the new task force, to bring relief to residents like you. You've brought this issue up. You deserve these services, and our new task force heightens our response to these ills that really do affect. If you have a resident, even if they're working on their own car, and every weekend it looks like a mechanic's project, even if it's not for commercial purposes, that has to be addressed as well. So working with the Civic Association is probably one of the very best ways. And this goes back to a point that was brought up multiple times today on other issues, the education component.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Okay.
This is your government too. You live here. This is your government as much as anyone else's.
I understand people own boats, but are you allowed to keep your boat on a grassy plain?
That's a very good question. We have a resident who's not here today who would probably love to speak on that issue.
I mean, I live on the water, and I have to look out and see 3 boats that have been on this grassy plain since I moved in. So for 7 years, these boats have not been on the water. One is actually sinking forward because it's on grass. So it's actually tilting, it's tilting forward, and it's an eyesore, and they're not working. There are 3 boats that have not been in water for 7 years.
Right.
Why is it allowed to stay like that?
It's very interesting that you bring this up. This is something we deal with in code compliance. We have a resident who's usually sitting in the room here trying to bring people in the room and others to believe that he's all about truth, justice, and protecting his rights, when in fact, he was doing the same thing, and we got complaints on that very, very issue. People are allowed to keep a boat on a paved surface, but not on an unpaved surface that you describe. So I'm going to direct and ask our code compliance to work toward compliance, meaning getting this resident to get that boat off of the unpaved surface and to address the issue. And some people really just need to get a little nudge in the right direction to frankly sell the boat. Because as someone who understands the marine environment and marine recreation, we know that there are many people who own a boat and they just don't want to part with it, but realistically, there's no, that vessel is never going to get back in the water again, and all it's doing is in having an impact, a negative impact on the community.
Thank you.
Commissioner, please. Yes.
As you indicated, being on the paved surface, but one of the things that we've been working on these past few months that I've been speaking with code enforcement about is when people are just storing their boat on their property, like you just said, like this lady mentioned, permanently. We're taking a different approach. We're trying to think outside the box, and we've been issuing, not only for boats, but for trailers. We're going about it not as the structure, but that they're using it as outdoor storage. Mm-hmm. So we're using different codes in order to address this. So these are things that we've been working on, not really looking at it as a boat, but that they're using it as outdoor storage. They're storing material or structure outside that's not within our code.
Thank you, Commissioner, and I will...
An address?
Oh, yeah, I have a couple of addresses.
Okay.
Because I live on the water, so I see one here, then across from me, there are 3 boats, one on top of the other.
So afterwards, I'll wait around and I'll take the address.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. This fits in just what we've been talking about truly creating a new day in the town of Oyster Bay. It means changing the codes, means adapting to the needs of the community. So if I may recommend, if each and every one of you will give your contact information, your address, your name, address, a phone number, and an email address to the Commissioner, we'll circle back and let's get a long list of all of the issues and the ills, because I'm very serious about continuing the good work that was started by a councilman close to my heart in the 1970s, and it's time that we make a very big priority of communities like East Massapequa.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Carol, did you want to speak?
I just want to say thank you very much. It's a new day, it sounds like, in Oyster Bay, and I appreciate it. I want to thank Jonathan Clark for also, and the town clerk,
James
Altadonna, said that he would work with us closely. I would like to let you know we'll be bringing forth a new list, updated, and pass it out. And the Quality of Life Committee, I appreciate that. So I thank you very much, and
thank you,
keep up the good work.
Known you for a long time, and always appreciate working with you. Yes, we do go way back, and it's a pleasure and a privilege. Thank you, Carol. Any other speakers? Yes, please come forward.
Who is the Quality of Life?
Would you please come forward if you don't mind? This way we can stick to our process here.
Sure.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Brown from Hicksville, 22 California Street. The Quality of Life Department or organization, task force, who is the head of that department? Or have you appointed somebody?
Yes, well, Commissioner Macarone come forward, Commissioner.
Okay.
Let's get the specifics. Good opportunity to promote something that we're doing that we want the public to be more involved in, and I'm going to repeat the phone number as well for people, many of them may be watching on the internet. Commissioner Macarone?
Hi, yes, we have convened the Quality of Life Task Force. Planning and Development is overseeing it. We have several members from the town of Oyster Bay. Councilman Ambrodo is our liaison to the town board. We have representatives from Code Enforcement, Mike Esposito. If anyone has complaints, you can call Code Enforcement directly. and they will bring it to, Mike will bring it to the committee, Deputy Commissioner Tim Zeig. We also have representatives from the Town Attorney's Office, Joseph Nacella, Paul Ehrlich. We also, Rich Lenz and John Bishop will be participating in certain aspects of it when it comes to tearing down the zombie homes and so forth, and public safety on an as-needed basis, and also we'll be reaching out to the police department when we have certain situations. Okay?
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you so much.
And Councilman, this is probably a great time for you to give your office number out to the public. As one of the point people on this is an excellent opportunity to let them know how they can get in touch with you to start this process.
Thank you, Supervisor, for giving me the opportunity to give my office number. It's 624-6306.
We all took on these jobs.
No, but this is a big priority for me since I took office, and we want to make sure that the town of Oyster Bay gets back to protecting the quality of life that we're so known for. So if you ever have any issues, feel free to call my office. It's extension 6306, 624-6306.
So you can contact my office, you can contact Councilman Imbrodo. Quite frankly, people can feel free to contact all of our elected officials, including our Town Clerk, James Altadonna. And the most direct way is getting right through to code enforcement, which is 624-6200. But this is all part of following up with what we're saying. We really mean it. We're creating a new day in the town of Oyster Bay, and we will do that with your work and with your involvement. So if there are no other speakers, thank you very much, everyone, for attending our town board meeting. And once again, I want to thank all my colleagues on the town board for their professionalism. Thank you. Thank you.